All right, guys, what is up? And welcome back to another episode of Music Talks. My name is Brennan, and we have officially concluded the Grammys for this year. And what a year it was! I think that it was the perfect culmination of all things in music 2024 and a little bit of 2023 as well. But we've officially moved past that, and it was definitely the closing chapter for all of that. We're officially able to move ahead to all of the new and exciting things that are coming in 2025, tours, albums, all the stuff we don't even know is going to happen yet, trends, whatever it is. But the Grammys is kind of the big celebration at the end of the road where we finally see who takes home the big awards for the best of the best for the previous year in music. And it was a really great show, and we're going to go through the awards, top moments, performances, a little bit of everything. It was definitely one of the better shows in recent years for sure, but it was just so great to see so many amazing talents in one room, and especially despite what's going on in the world and, you know, all the conflicts and the things that are happening and changing in society, but also on top of that, all the wildfires and the things that are just going on in California, and how we were kind of able to raise a lot of money through the Grammys for that and raise millions of dollars for sure. But I think the coolest thing about that is that the Grammys continuously show that is a place of love and music, and you can always go to the Grammys and expect cool collaborations and just everyone coming together despite genres and backgrounds, whatever it might be. I think that the Grammys just does an amazing job, as I've probably said many of times, and they just continue to do that, and this year was just another year just like that. So we've got a lot to get into, a lot to talk about. We're going to go through a little bit of everything. You know, I think now it's been over 24 hours since the show started at the time of I'm recording this. And so just looking back and thinking about what I wanted to talk about and the things that I liked, things that I didn't like, there is so much. So I'm going to try not to ramble on forever, but, you know, we're going to get right into it. I think for sure that this show was longer than a lot of the shows in recent years. And I was honestly surprised, especially considering that they had less awards on the main show than they did in the previous years. We only had 9. And, you know, honestly, I think it's kind of cool to not have like award after award after award in the main show, because people want to see the performances and all that kind of stuff. And when you do that, you have the chance to just spotlight a lot of talent, right? And I feel like it kind of makes them a little bit more special when they don't have just like 15,000 awards one after another. It just adds to the moment. So it was an interesting take for sure, but I feel like with a lot of the fundraising and all the tributes and things they wanted to do, that's probably why it was a little bit longer. I'm not against it. I liked it. If the show's going to be longer, I want it to be full of substance, and it definitely was. I don't feel like there was any filler in the show at all. And usually with these award shows, there's some kind of filler or speech or something, and we didn't get that. It was just the thing after another, and yes, it was a little bit all over the place from time to time, but it was still just really solid. I have to say, Trevor Noah, going on his 5th year, I think it is time for him to wrap it up for sure. I just don't know that he has anything special to offer with the awards hosting anymore. I think that he has done all that he can do. I don't know. I think when they originally announced him as the host several years ago, I was like, because I'm not a huge Trevor Noah fan, but I do think that he's just done all that he can do. I think that he just spent too many times making jokes and cracking all kinds of like just kind of smart marks and everything. And by the end of the show, I was kind of like, okay, I'm kind of over this. So I'd like to see somebody else host next year. Obviously, they got comfortable with Trevor because he was doing good, but I think at this point we need somebody fresh, a little bit newer. I think the same thing happened with LL Cool J and Alicia Keys. You know, Queen Latifah, when they all hosted, after a while, it was like, okay, it's time to try something new. So I definitely think that Trevor has hit that point for sure. I think, I don't know, I wouldn't even want to say to give him another year. I would rather him not do it anymore, but it is what it is. He didn't do awful. It's just, it's a little old now. Also, the table setup, the way that the stage and everything, the production is great. I think that taking away the stadium seating and like putting all of the nominees like at tables with each other is so cool, and you get to see them interact. I think that is so really cool. It seems like more of a professional environment. I like it, and also with that too, they've talked about this before, but they don't show the nominees in the category whenever they're announcing the winner, only the winner afterwards. And I like that because so often, I mean, people are going to be upset if they lose, but so often people's faces and expressions are taken out of context and for no reason. So like, I like that they do that so that it's not like any kind of like gotcha moment or something like that. I like that they do that. I think sometimes it's nice to show that if they're there or not, but at the same time, that's not that important at all. I think that's very respectful thing for them to do as well. I did also watch the premiere ceremony, which is the other like 80 something awards that they hand out beforehand. And there's a lot, and they always fly through those. The performances this year in the premiere ceremony weren't as good as they were in previous years. I think that they were okay, but the only notable, like, I guess you could say, quote unquote mainstream people that performed were Money Long, and it was obviously going through something, and she did not do that hot. But other than that, there were some great performances, but they weren't anything that really brings in a crowd. And usually they have a couple bigger people, but usually also those people that are not going to be on the main show, it's usually safe to assume that those people are going to win awards if they're performing in the premiere ceremony, because that's just how it's gone in the past. And I think they want to give those people a little bit of a spotlight. This year, I think I did okay on my predictions. Like I mentioned, I changed my mind a lot, but I did vote on all the categories, and this year I ended up with 59 out of the 94 correct, which I'm not happy with, but I know that's probably a little bit obsessive. Metal categories, opera, classical arrangements, they always get me because I don't have skill in those categories at all. There's also some that I was just kind of like, I knew that there was other people going to win, but I was really rooting for a certain person to win and hoped that it would happen, and it didn't for a lot of those categories. So that's also a couple other ones I got wrong. But, I think that it was a really good turnout for the most part. But we are going to move away from the premiere ceremony back into the red carpet, all of the guests, the awards performances, all of that stuff. Of course, with it being the days after the ceremony, the internet is ablaze about literally everything, and it feels like there's not a corner of the internet that is safe for someone to be excited about all the winners, right? And I am a big fan of a lot of artists, and even people that I don't necessarily care for or I would consider myself a fan of. I respect their talent and their work, right? And I think I've mentioned several times, like Billie Eilish, I'm not a huge fan of her, but I respect that she is a great artist, and her new album was phenomenal, and I can admit that, right? And that's so often people get on the internet and just it turns into like a fan war always every year, and you get, oh, this person bought this, and oh, this person got robbed, and this and that, and I think it just continuously shows how out of touch the general public can be with how the music industry focuses on art, especially the Grammys as an organization. There's so many other award shows, especially in music, that focus on sales and chart performances and fan voting, all of that kind of stuff. And there's nothing wrong with any of that, but I feel like the Recording Academy and the Grammys are used to really focus on the art and the music and the expression, all of that, the creativity aspects of that. And the general public so often wants to strip the Academy of that and focus on this person, blah, 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 blah. And a lot of times, too, it's all of these big artists that are excited for other people and are fans and voted for other people, but their fan bases are just going to town on each other on the internet. And so I think it's just a continual cycle, and it always will be, because that's how the internet is, and that's how the toxic stan culture will always be. But I don't know. I think that just continuously shows that they don't know really how the Recording Academy votes and operates. And I think sometimes they could probably, I had some friends that literally told me, they're like, I didn't know that the Academy wasn't a bunch of rich old white dudes, right? So I think that a lot of time the people are not educated with how they actually operate, and that's a little bit on them. But I think that that's why the Grammys are so respected, right? And just like with everything else, awards are not everything. So if you don't have a Grammy, I mean, that's completely fine. Your art is still valid. Your art is still subjectively important, right? And it should be the first thing on their mind. But I just continuously will drill into anyone that will listen to me's head that it's all about music, music, and music, and that community and bringing it all together, even though it is a competition. So, like, yeah, I think that the internet and stan culture and all of that is just slowly deteriorating away with the general public's feelings on things. But getting off my soapbox on that, it really was a really great show. Looking at the rap categories, absolutely no surprise. Kendrick Lamar took all of them, and he did not lose a Grammy for the night at all. You know, he won rap song, rap performance, best music video, record, song of the year, all for Not Like Us. And I know that it is so funny to me. I think that a little bit, I mean, it is a really solid record, but I think a little bit of that is the trolling against Drake, and it just continues to solidify Kendrick's legacy and him being one of the big three in rap music. And I just think it's so funny. And I know Drake is somewhere fuming about this, but even if this song was not as successful, there's still a high chance that Kendrick could have won because they love Kendrick and he is a true artist. So I definitely give him that. There were a lot of sweeps, honestly, more so than I expected. Sometimes they go through years where they're like, one person's winning all the categories. Some years they go and they're like, we want to split it up between everybody. This year was all over the place, honestly. Americana, Roots, Bluegrass, all of those awards went to Sierra Farrell. It's just one after another, and she's very talented. I'm not very familiar with her work, but she took all of those, and I expected it for a couple, but not all of them, honestly. Especially she went up against like Waxahachie and Maddie Diaz and Billy Strings. There's some big people that I thought really had a chance for sure. Adrienne Linker, that's another one. But like I said, it's never what you think it's going to be. The alternative rock categories sweep for St. Vincent. I think St. Vincent is super cool, but I don't think this album should have won, and she swept almost all her categories, and I don't know. I think her previous work was better, and I didn't vote for her in a lot of these categories just because she was up for like Brittany Howard in a couple of them, and I love her new album. But I kind of expected it, but I didn't vote for it personally. Like I mentioned in the nominees, the R&B categories were so bad this year, and we left out so many really, really good projects and artists. And they put some really weird people in there instead. But it was a really weird mix of like winners too. There wasn't a big sweep. I know there's a prediction that Money Long was going to take all of them, and she didn't. She took one, I believe. But we saw Lucky Day win for That's You, phenomenal song. SZA won for Saturn. Those were definitely deserved. I wanted those to win. Coco Jones, I would have loved to see her win something else too. The big shock to me was that Chris Brown won for his album. I did not expect that at all. And putting aside Chris's controversial past, I didn't really think his album was phenomenal. It wasn't bad, but I don't think that it was on par with the work that we know Chris for at all. And then, of course, the electronic dance categories went to Brat and for Charlie XCX. Well deserving. 100%. No surprise there. I'm glad she got it. She did also win Dance Pop Recording, which is the only second year that we've had this category, and it was pretty stacked this year. It was last year too, but this year was Charlie and Troy and Madison Beer and Ariana and Billy, which is a really stacked lineup. And I felt like if Ariana was going to win a category, it was definitely going to be for this one. And so I had actually picked her to win with Billy as a runner-up, but Von Dutch is my favorite song on Brat, and I'm happy with the win. I think it's a really, really good song, and she deserves those wins for sure because electronic is in her blood. Country was honestly probably the hardest categories for me to decide on this year, and of course, like I've said 10,000 times, because of the country boom in the last year, but they honestly, I kind of went in because I couldn't decide. I put in my best hope, basically, of who I really wanted to win and who I was hopeful that they would actually pull through for. And it turned out really, really good. We had basically a three-way split between Casey Musgraves, Beyonce, and Chris Stapleton. I feel like that was the best option. You can't go wrong with any of them. Three of them are Grammy favorites, but also three of the best in the game. And I was glad to see all of them win, especially The Architect, which I feel like is a little bit of an underdog, but great song, definitely deserved. Chris Stapleton never fails. I was very happy with how they turned out. Now, of course, Country Album went to Beyonce, and I think that is just so freaking cool. Obviously, Cowboy Carter is not traditional country, but I don't think from the beginning it was ever meant to be an album that was to fit in any box, right? I think it was definitely country inspired, and that was the spirit of country was very much on display in this record. But it obviously struck a nerve with basic country listeners, and I've always said this from the beginning. I am a huge country music fan. I love country music deeply, and I love diversity and all of the different things that artists can bring to the table in country music. But no one hates country music more than country music listeners, and it is always a bloodbath. Honestly, worse than pop music stands. Everything, this is not country, and this is not country, and this is country, and they're trashy, and they'll never be. It's always going to happen, and I hate it. But it's the reason why a lot of the country listening community is not well respected, because they are ridiculous, honestly, and I hate that. But no matter who wins, there's going to be outrage of anger and frustration, and I think that the country album obviously is being talked about a lot because these people think that Beyonce doesn't deserve it, right? And I think people also need to realize that the Grammys are voted on by the people in these genre categories, by the peers. So Beyonce may have not won in other award shows for country music. However, the country community selected her as the winner, right? Not random people, not Beyonce's friends. So it's important to point that out, that as a whole, they felt that she was the most deserving as the album, right? And I love Casey Musgraves. I love Deeper Well. I love Chris Stapleton's Higher. And I think they were not as strong of albums overall as Cowboy Carter. And no, Cowboy Carter is not my favorite Beyonce album, but it is a historically monumental album, and it deserves that win, and if you don't like it, perfectly fine, but the definition of country cannot be defined by one listener, right? It's different for everyone, and it was very clear that Beyonce was shocked. I've never seen that girl show facial expressions or show kind of just speechlessness for something. I feel like it was just very well paid off for her. She's very gracious in that. And, it's not traditional country, but that's completely okay. And if you don't like that, that's your own personal problem. And I think that you have to deal with that yourself, right? And if you don't like it, nobody's forcing you to listen to it. But it doesn't mean that you have to diminish another artist's work just because it's not personally for you. But moving on, I think the producer of the year also was no surprise. Daniel Nigro, who worked with Sabrina and mostly Chappell Roan, that was no surprise. Ray not winning for songwriter of the year, I was a little bit disappointed. I really thought she had it. Of course, Amy Allen worked with Sabrina Carpenter on her work, and so that was my next choice for sure. I really thought that she had it, but I think Ray's going to get a lot of Grammy recognition in the future for sure. Two really big surprises is that Taylor Swift and Billie Eilish went home empty-handed. One of those two does not surprise me at all. The other one, I am a little bit shocked because I thought Birds of a Feather was a front runner for Song of the Year, or at least pop solo performance, whatever it might be. I really think she had a chance, and I think that her album was very, very solid, but I think it may have not been different enough to go against the other competition for sure. Taylor, I feel like in the nominations, she got the nominations for the album because they love Taylor as a person and they love her as an artist, but it was more so a nomination for the views and getting that fan base in. So in my opinion, I don't think her not winning anything is a surprise. Like I said, I have no issue with Taylor, but I don't think that this album connected with the general public or anyone outside of her hardcore fan base. And that's fine if it's an album for them, but I don't think this album was good. I mean, it wasn't bad. I'm not gonna say her album was bad, but I don't think it was her best work, and I think maybe this will inspire her to work harder on the next one. But I think that is no surprise. I mean, I expected her to win at least something because she is Taylor Swift, but that didn't happen. And technically, Chappell Roan went home empty-handed for her work as well. Of course, she won Best New Artist, very well deserved, but she did not win anything for her album or any of her songs. And I think it really just comes down to too many big pop monuments. It split the vote. They were all, if they were one or two of them and not all of them, it would have been a lot easier for some of them to secure wins, but it was just too much. And I think that's the same case with Record and Song of the Year, is that there was just too many major pop hits that split the vote and allowed Kendrick to take charge there. And I think the same for Beyonce too. She was able to pull in a lot of communities because it wasn't a mainstream pop album. But unfortunately, a lot of these girls and their music suffered because of how tough that competition was. I do think that Sabrina Carpenter, it was great to see her win for Best Pop Vocal Album. I think that Short and Sweet is like of the options in that category, the best as far as a pop album and making a solid pop record. That's what you expect and that's what you want. And she's so original and she's been around for so long already that I think she definitely deserved that. I really thought Espresso was going to win Record of the Year. It definitely deserved it. But like I said, splitting those pop votes, that did it in. And I was just very, very shocked for sure on that one. I didn't expect him to win both, honestly, Kendrick. But I'm not against it. I just think it's really funny. And it's definitely, of course, a great Super Bowl setup for him. The Dr. Dre Impact Award for Alicia Keys, definitely deserved. Alicia Keys is phenomenal and has been in the game for so long and is very well respected. So I had absolutely no complaints with her winning that whatsoever. I love that they do that award now. That started a couple years ago. And like I said, it was a historical win for Beyonce, but we also had another major, major historical win for Doechii, winning for Best Rap Album with her mixtape, Alligator Bites Never Heal. Phenomenal, right? She is the third woman in history to win this category. Lauryn Hill, Cardi B, and now her. And that is it. And, there's a lot of female rappers in the game now. And so it's super cool to see her just come up and take this because it was very well deserved. And she worked her butt off during the campaigning for this for sure. I could not have been proud of her. She definitely deserved it. And she definitely took that moment to recognize how big of an achievement that is. And with that, too, I think that she will be the first of the three women to have a follow-up project. Cardi still only has one album. Lauryn Hill, one album. So I think that she's going to be the first one to break that cycle for sure. Also speaking on it and the importance of that and just how amazing it is to see Black artists, and especially Black female artists, get nominated and win in these big categories. I mean, we have not had a woman win, a Black female artist win Album of the Year since 1999, which is insane, right? Because there's so many that have been deserving. And, my biggest pet peeve was SZA not winning because I think SOS was a phenomenal album. But the historical impact and the great moments that they were making, I love it. I love that they did that. Of course, I've talked about Beyonce enough already, but Album of the Year, whenever you talk about Album of the Year, you need to talk about the cohesiveness of a project. You got to talk about the impact, stretching yourself as an artist, just the historicalness behind that album, the production, the lyrics, everything together working and putting aside sales, putting aside streaming, putting aside fan voting, so whatever it is, you have to look at these albums and see which one is just stretching to new lengths and taking these artists on a brand new level. And Beyonce had done that. I think Renaissance was very deserving of Album of the Year, but I will admit that Renaissance was more in tune with the kind of music we expected from Beyonce, while Cowboy Carter was a completely new venture for her. And it was so great to see her 20 plus years into her career try something brand new and have the cultural impact that it had. And I think looking at all the other nominees, there were some really, really, really great albums in there. But I think that none of them did what Cowboy Carter did. And no, it is not my favorite Beyonce album, but you can't discredit it. It is an amazing, amazing body of work that stretches beyond fan bases and all of that mess that is not important at all. So definitely deserved. I've already seen thousands and thousands of Jay-Z bought it, and they gave it to as a pity. They're scared of her, all of that, right? And all of that noise will always continue, and all of that noise will always be there for all kinds of artists. And it is a little bit crazy for me to see all of how brave and how much people are ready to diminish these legendary and iconic artists, even if you're not a fan of them, right? It is what it is. And I think that the fan bases have to rise above that and show love to those artists because they're all friends. And, you saw Lady Gaga, Billie Eilish, and Taylor, all these people that were so, so happy for Beyonce to win. And I think that it even stretches beyond a Beyonce win, but in any years that when your favorite does not take the award, that's okay. It's all, everyone has their own opinion, and that's completely fine. So, congrats to Beyonce on that. Well deserved. I have no other thoughts about that. So, moving into the performances. So, we started the show off with a tribute to LA. I Love LA with a local California band. And Brad Paisley and Sheryl Crow and John Legend and Brittany Howard and St. Vincent. Weird collection of people, but I think that's also the beauty of the Grammys is that they bring together all kinds of people from different backgrounds, different types of music, because every single one of those people stuck out like a sore thumb because of how different they are. But they sounded great together, and it definitely set the tone for the whole night. It just really showed how cool music is and the power of music and how it heals and things like that. I think it was a little odd to start the show off, but it definitely set the tone for how important the community of music, especially in LA, is. So I'm glad they did that and take as much time as they did to talk about the fires and donations and things like that. Sabrina Carpenter, another phenomenal performance. That girl is just so dang funny. I love the comedic elements, the drama, the story, the acting that she brings to her performances just makes it so enjoyable and just kind of like locks in on your attention. And of course she's saying please, 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 and espresso, and it was great. And I was locked in trance the entire time because she just is always doing new and funny, and I love that she did that. Billie Eilish, Birds of a Feather. I liked her little tribute. I think that her fans finally got the outdoorsy, beautiful sunshine, birds of a feather theme that they wanted for this song with this performance. She sounded great. It was a very simple performance. Nothing too fancy, but she did sound great. Chappell Roan, another one of the big female pop stars that made waves. The spectacle, the big performance, the entertainment. This is one of those. My problem with Chappell Roan is that I have really liked her music and had the chance. I have had the chance to go. I didn't go to see her in concert. My problem with Chappell is that her music and her personality and her persona are so unique and wonderful. However, her performance aesthetic is not there. And of course, some of that comes with her just being a small indie artist for even most of this year. And now we've gotten, with the VMAs and the Grammys, we've gotten real big performances that show her vision, that show her visionary. She can do a whole lot. And so I was really, really excited to see her sing a different song, and not sing the same song as a lot of other people have been doing recently. But I really liked seeing her have that big performance moment, because I think that she's made for that moment. And of course, Pink Pony Club, she went all out, and that was exactly the kind of performance that I was looking for from Chapel. She definitely had great vocals in that one as well. The next one I have mixed thoughts about, and this was the mega huge, crazy, overstimulating mess that was the Best New Artist performance showcase thing that was like 15 minutes long. And I really like the idea of showcasing Best New Artist and allowing them to perform their songs and putting them on display, because in so many years past, we've seen so many artists, even artists that I love, that even that they were Best New Artist nominee, probably would have gotten a lot more publicity if they were performing or on camera more, anything. I love the idea of this. I don't know that I like the execution of it. It was just so chaotic. First off, we started right after the commercial break, straight into Krungbin playing one of their songs off their new album. And I love Krungbin. I think they're so unique, so different. But also, Krungbin is the underdog, and a lot of people do not know them still, even though they're on their 5th album. But there was no introduction. They just started playing, and I was like, this was the worst placement for them of all time, because they got no introduction. And I was like, what the heck is going on here? So it just also did not give a moment to shine on their music, because it was just a short little performance. Right after that, Trevor goes into the big mashup, and of course they put Krungbin first because they knew that the lo-fi vibe was not gonna mix in with a lot of the chaos and the things that they were about to do. I don't even remember what order these were in, but Shabuzi, I'm losing my interest in him. I just don't know where his future artistry goes. Not to say that he can't be a massive artist, that he can't do a lot, but his vocals and almost all of his live performances have not been good. And I feel like he's kind of getting stale out on that performance aspect. So I don't know. I feel like he was the worst of, and not to say he was awful, but he was just not the best or anywhere close to being the best in this lineup. It was just nothing special. Same thing with Teddy Swims. I love Teddy Swims. I think he's phenomenal. I think he will definitely get more nominations in the future, because he is a great talent. Obviously, he sang Lose Control because that's one of the biggest songs of the year. I would have liked to see him sing one of his other songs that were on the rise more. He's got great songs. He did sing his song, Lose Control, which led into Beautiful Things with Benson Boone, which is my biggest complaint of the night, is that Benson Boone is literally ruining his own chance at making an impact as an artist and getting out of the one-hit wonder thing. Benson has actually had like one or two other songs that did okay on the charts and were on radio, and the only thing that he ever sings is Beautiful Things. And I think that is harming him so much, because people are tuning out, because what's he do? He stands up, he strips, he does a backflip, sings the note, backflips again. It is the exact same thing over and over and over and over, and he's not only ruining it for himself, but male pop stars in general. So I need him to do something different, because this is not it. He has talent, but he is just diminishing his spotlight more and more every day by continuously doing the exact same carbon copy performance everywhere. Like, everywhere. I'm not even joking. Then we had two amazing moments in this that should have gotten performances on their own. The first one being Ray, phenomenal talent, seeing them Amy Winehouse vibes. I hated to see her get such this shortened slot because she just had to belt it all out in like 2 minutes or less. So rushed. And then we also had Doechii, who was one of the best performances of the night, put on a whole show, but she got through like 3 songs in a couple seconds less than 2 minutes. And it was so rushed. And I think both of those artists would have had even more stellar performances if they were given full time slots. But I would not have wanted to follow them at all. They were amazing, though, in the time that they had. It was just a whole lot going on. Lady Gaga and Bruno Mars singing California Dreaming, another tribute for LA, was really beautiful. I want to have that rendition on my phone. I like that their cover. I like everything that they've done together so far. They just have a very unique sound together. And, of course, after that, too, we got brand new Lady Gaga song and music video, killer, banger. I love that she showed a music video during the advertisements. She's back. Love Lady Gaga. Excited to see what she does next. Now we're going to talk about a big surprise that literally had me shook, and that was The Weeknd. Because who thought The Weeknd was going to be there? 0 people. So if you're not familiar with The Weeknd and his history with the Recording Academy, is that a couple years ago, After Hours and Blinding Lights, the biggest song in history, got 0 nominations. And this was the same year that he was up to perform at the Super Bowl. He did not get those nominations, and I think that there was a lot of behind-the-scenes shadiness to where he was kind of forced to pick between the Super Bowl or his nominations and performances, and there used to be committees in place to oversee the final winners and nominees and categories, and that's very wrong, and I'm so glad that we've done away with that. But he exposed this. He wanted to hold them accountable, and he vowed to not go to the Grammys, to not submit, to not perform, not anything. So this was not a moment that was planned, I think, or anyone thought was planned or anything like that. But they basically were. Harvey Mason was getting up on the stage. He's the CEO of the Grammys, and talking about holding each other accountable and seeing all the work that the Grammys and the Recording Academy have done to change and being accountable, like I said. And they talked about The Weeknd and him being kind of a spark that led to that change. And so I in no way expected The Weeknd to come up on this stage. Total shock. I love The Weeknd. I think his new album and his work is great. The performance was there wasn't a lot going for it. It was very standard The Weeknd performance. I'm sure it was put together very last moment. But I think this was just such a cool historical moment. And I think a lot of people have not realized the significance of his music and the Grammys and the history and the change that has come from that. And I think that, yes, there was wrongdoings by the Academy and these committees in the past, but I love that they have taken accountability and are very open and honest about that with the new leadership, new people that are in the Academy. The Academy is about music. It's about the musicians and the peers. And I'm glad to see him back. I am. It was good, and I did not expect that at all. That was definitely the big surprise for the night. The Quincy Jones tribute, yes and no. That is all I want to say. When you put somebody like Cynthia Erivo first on stage, she's going to kill it. That girl can sing anything, and putting her on the stage and then having people follow up her performance, mind-blowing. I don't know. She was amazing. Janelle Monáe, her tribute was spot on. I loved it. Another one-in-a-generation talent. Will Smith, no. He was narrating this whole dang thing. Had no purpose whatsoever. Jacob Collier, instrumentation, phenomenal talent. Lainey Wilson, no. Whenever I heard a big band and saw her, I immediately clenched, because that is a person that should never, ever touch that kind of music, or Quincy Jones music. I think that she has got an amazing team and publicists behind her, but this was not a place that she needed to be. This was not good for her. It just sounded like an overhyped and over forced country accent. trying to get through this song. And I think it's important to realize that some people have really great strengths and other people do not have those strengths, and it's important to know what your strengths are. This was not one for her. Other than that, it was enjoyable. The other tribute, the In Memoriam, Chris Martin, I almost forgot that we even watched it. It was fine. Chris Martin usually does those kind of things. I just felt like there wasn't a lot put on that moment at all. Last two performances to talk about. Shakira, she still got it. I mean, the woman is probably pushing 50 now, and she still moves like a 20-year-old girl performer. I think this is the coolest performance from her because we got a lot of like kind of EDM rave pop music there at the end of it, so it was really cool to see her get into that. And then, of course, speaking of raves and EDM, we, of course, ended with Brat and Charlie XCX doing what Charlie does, which is whatever she wants. She performed with the Brats outside, with models, with the Dare, with the most Charlie moment ever, and I think that it definitely brought the vibes, and it was definitely needed at the end of the show to bring the energy back up. It was so Charlie, and it was enjoyable to watch. Brat is such an enjoyable phenomenon. Wasn't anything special, but it had the special Charlie charm, and I think that is perfectly fine. That wraps up the performances. A couple major moments that I wanted to talk about. This first one is something that has made me so upset to see, but that is the Babyface interview with the AP, I believe, with the interviewers. We're talking to him and see Chappell Roan talking, and they immediately interrupt his sentence and start yelling at Chappell, basically cut off his interview, and he just kind of is like, oh, okay, and walks off. The rudest thing that I have ever seen in journalism, but on top of that, also at the Grammys in recent years, because even if you're not familiar with Babyface, like, that's not acceptable to do it to anyone. And also, knowing Chappell Roan, if she had known that had happened, she would have immediately talked right to their faces. I think that was so disrespectful, and the company has issued an apology, but I don't think that those kind of people deserve to be in a position of journalism. So rude, so disrespectful, and does not represent the music industry at all. Another moment that I've seen so much about is Benson Boone adjusting himself on stage, on camera, in front of everyone. Poor dude. Goodness. This moment, it was everywhere. And I think a lot of people in their interactions, the audience was kind of like, oh, and that is exactly what I thought at home too. I was like, this man just did this on national TV. Not as a serious moment, but still very talked about. Chappell Roan's insurance speech about health insurance for artists. Definitely not something that I thought she was going to get up there and talk about. Now, knowing Chappell, she's very passionate, and I expected her to definitely talk about something. But this was not it. But I will say, good for her. I think that health insurance and taking care of artists is very, very important, especially in the music industry. So, props to her. Of course, we've already got a meme, too, moving into this fourth one, with Beyonce's reaction to getting country album, where she's just completely shocked. And her becoming a meme, I guarantee, is going to send her into public hibernation for the next 8 months, at least, because that woman is always composed, and that was the first time I've ever seen her respond or act shocked to anything. I think this is going to be the first big meme of 2025 for sure. And the last one, ending on a high note, is the entire Crypto.com arena shouting the words "to not like us" and screaming "a minor." I think that was so funny. Drake, man, throw in the towel. It is what it is. That's just some of the big moments from the show. There was obviously a whole lot more, but we've also talked about a lot of things already. A couple people that I was thinking about that I want to see more in the future at the Grammys: Troye Sivan, Ray, obviously The Weeknd, Teddy Swims, Krung Ben, Tori Kelly, Omar Apollo. There are some people that were there and have won or been nominated very recently that I think. Madison Beer, I think if she stays in the lane that she's done with this dance pop, she's got a bright future as well. But these are just some of the people that I feel like have a bright future with the Recording Academy, and I would like to see them more. Obviously, there's people that I love that I would love to see more, but these are some of the ones that I feel like are the most likely to show up in the next couple of years. Just off the top of my head, an extremely early guess at nominees for Best Album of the Year. Potentially we're getting The Weeknd with this Rekindling, Bad Bunny, definitely. I think, obviously we haven't heard it yet, but I think there's high chances for Lady Gaga this year. Yeah, that's all I've got right now. Obviously there's still a lot of music to come out. I'm interested. I'll see if Lana for SZA is going to be eligible. I'm going to have to look into that because there are rules about deluxe and songs. And with Saturn already winning, I'm not sure if Lana will be eligible because it is submitted as a deluxe project. Who knows? But that's pretty much everything that I got about the Grammys. Like I said, great show. One of the greater shows in recent years. I am so happy to see music thriving, and I think it was the perfect end to 2024's music scene. And I'm just excited to see what happens this year. And that concludes all the episodes where we're going to talk about music from last year. We are looking forward, talking about new exciting things. I will see you guys next time. This is Music Talks. Have a good night.